Hello friends! Here is a quick video on barbershop music. Lots of Project M members already know all about this, but there are some lovely new people in our group who are new to barbershop. They might have come from a choral background or from a different singing background or just from the world where they want to join in. And so I thought I might give a little bit of information about the music that we sing and, I don't know, just a little bit of background maybe to help you get to know it. So barbershop music itself isn't actually a style or a genre or an era of music. It's an arranging style. So barbershop music takes songs from all sorts of different genres, from pop, from different eras, from musicals, from jazz, all around the place, and it arranges those songs in a particular style that is barbershop. That means that we have the tune right in the middle. In our lead section, we have harmony above the tune and harmony below the tune. We have close harmonies all the time. We have 4 parts all the time. And we have the music a cappella. So only voices, no accompaniment happening with it. Very rarely in barbershop you'll have accompanying music, but it wouldn't be traditional or classical barbershop. It's not what we would associate normally with barbershop. It's usually extra for fun. So the parts in barbershop, we know the leads, they sing the tune. The basses are going to sing below the tune. So they always sing the lowest notes of the chord. Usually, most often, they're sitting around the 1 and the 5 of the chord, the do and the so of the chord. That gives us a nice strong foundation to our sound. The leads sing the tune, we know that. Above the leads are the tenors. They're harmonizing above the tune. Almost all of the time they're going to be above the tune. A very few notes in each song will be below. And the last part is the baritones, and they are filling in all of those notes in the chord that haven't already been sung by the other 3 parts. So the baritones are sometimes above the lead, sometimes below the lead. Very, very rarely are they above the tenors, almost never, and very, very rarely are they below the basses, almost never. So their part sort of intertwines with the lead, and the baritones often would have little features or solos as you go through a song. So they would be a kind of a similar enough of range and idea. Where did it come from? Well, barbershop music is thought to have come from the black communities in the USA, where amateur singers wanted to imitate the professional singers they were hearing on the radio. So they got together in small groups to sing. Sometimes back then they might have had an instrument, and these groups kind of would have traveled around locally, perhaps in their local barbershop, which was the center of the community, perhaps on a street corner, and people could come to listen, and they'd sing kind of the pop tunes of the day, and they were really, really popular. And because the style of music has this lovely close harmony and a focus on the tune, it was a lovely way to hear the songs you wanted to hear of the days, the popular tunes, as it were. The voice parts in barbershop is the next bit. So we've talked about what they are. Let's talk about how we ration them and how we like to balance them. The barbershop voices are often spoken about in a pyramid or like a triangle. That's not a very good triangle, but you get what I mean. At the bottom are the basses with the most sound. In an ideal world, 40% of our chorus would be basses. Wouldn't that be amazing? We want a really solid foundation to the sound. We want it to be very grounded, and the basses are really the most important part in that harmony. Next up in our pyramid comes the leads. We want about 30% of our chorus to be leads. We want a lovely strong melody all the time so that our audience can hear the song that they want to hear. Next up comes the baritones, which is probably 20-25% of the sound that we're having in the chorus. And then at the very top of the pyramid are the tenors, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the chorus. And the idea of the tenors really is to be what they call the icing sugar on the top of the harmonies. Not a very dominant part at all, quite the opposite of the basses. A feature of barbershop music is free interpretation of the rhythm. This happens with our slower songs. So moderate tempo and up tempo songs like our Old Devil Moon, they would be in time, actually quite metronomically in time, exactly as you would expect from the sheet music. Tick, 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 they follow along. But the slower songs are more open to interpretation. And barbershop itself is a folk art. It grew up in communities. It grew up by ear, by listening and by copying, rather than the classical style, for example, which would have been more the written down type of music. And we see this a lot in Irish music, in folk tunes that were passed down through generations, and people later on went around collecting these folk tunes. Barbershop would be similar. These type of harmonies traveled around in that sort of a folk way. So the idea is really not to have a defined performance of that song, but that each group kind of can make it their own or can give it their own flair. And that is something that's really encouraged and wanted in barbershop. So particularly in the slower songs or the ballads, Our Love Walked In is a ballad, particularly in those songs, you would be allowed to freely interpret the rhythm, often mimicking the rhythm of speech, and often slowing down at cadences or at the end of phrases to show off the lovely chords or the lovely sounds that you have there. A little nerd fact about barbershop is we tune using just intonation. What am I talking about? Well, if you were to imagine the distance between C and C on a piano, or do and do, and break it up exactly evenly, like a ruler divided up between the white notes on the black notes on the piano, the distance between that sound would be equal temperament. And that's what you find on a piano. It's just a mathematical formula between the two ends of the scale. In real life, however, and in the harmonics and the frequencies that are naturally created, the spaces between the notes are actually not exactly equal. They're not mathematically equal. They're what's called just temperament or just intonation, as opposed to equal temperament. So if you were to look at your physics from secondary school, your oscillator, and sing a note in, you'll see different levels of harmonic, and those are the ones that we tune to. The piano is slightly out of tune, if you'll believe it. So in barbershop we tune much more with our ears. Again, we don't use instruments to play with, and you'll find that I try my best not to use piano to help along with the chorus, because we're much better off listening to each other and listening to a pitch blown by a pitch pipe. We naturally, as humans, will tune to just intonation because that's the harmonics that we're hearing in our ears, or in our brains if our ears don't think they can hear it. Yeah, tiny nerd fact for you. And then the last thing about barbershop music is, I suppose, a defining feature of it is in the performance. We perform barbershop songs with expression and with an attempt to tell the story and to tell an authentic and true story. It's very different than, for example, cathedral singers who might have their music and sing whatever hymn it is very beautifully and give the message through that. We as barbershoppers, we want to give our message of the music through our whole bodies, through our whole performance, our faces, our bodies, and our voices, which is one of the many reasons we don't use music. But also one of the things we'll be working towards is to kind of showing with more than just our singing voices what the story is that we're trying to tell. So there you go, a few basics of barbershop music.